It's Channel Weird, and I'm Clyde Lewis. I got to tell you that, I've interviewed vampires, I've interviewed all kinds of creatures and people who take on these personas of creatures as well. And never in my life have I interviewed a mermaid. And today I'm interviewing a mermaid, a real, honest-to-goodness mermaid. And I was telling my wife this. I said, seriously, I'm going to the studio today to interview a mermaid. Una the mermaid is with us.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I was telling you earlier, I'm a little nervous to interview a mermaid because it's kind of like, you don't know how to address a mermaid. You just kind of say, well, that's a mermaid. It's amazing. And thank you for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We've heard a lot about you. That's why we wanted to bring you on because, we heard about what you do, what you're about, and why you do this. And, it's amazing because what you're doing is you're actually, with the whole mermaid thing, you are reaching out to people and you're tapping into this creative vein. Live your life, be creative, be in touch. And can you tell us a little bit about why this mermaid symbol is so important to you and what you're doing to reach out to people?
Sure. Well, first of all, I always like to share with people that mermaids represent the deeper watery parts of ourselves. So archetypally, especially when we think about mermaids on a spiritual or etheric plane, these are beings that symbolize deep emotional connection, empathy, and just sort of connectedness and flow. Mm-hmm. And so archetypally, it really just represents being in your body and being comfortable with who you are and being emotionally connected to those around you. And so I feel in our world today, there's a lot of emotional disconnection. And so mermaids are a really great way symbolically and spiritually to reconnect with that part of ourselves and also embrace beauty and magic, which I think with a lot that's going on in our world today, we could use a little bit more of.
Yeah, we go back in time and we realize that the Melusine itself is a very powerful image because, you look at Starbucks, for example, they have a Melusine on their cup and people always say, why am I drawn to this? And it's also, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much mermaids contribute to the pop culture. And what I mean is that, we had Ariel, of course, the Little Mermaid who wanted to be a human. We have Aquaman, of course. They really upped the ante with Aquaman. And now we have a film that's on Disney called Luca. What do you think of the depictions of all these films? And are you a fan of these films?
I'm a huge fan of almost every sort of mer-related film out there for, one reason or another. I mean, some of them are laughable, particularly in the horror genre. We can talk about some of those. But there have been some really excellent films. I think, I think particularly in Western culture, we're really fascinated with the romanticized concepts of the mer people or mermaids. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great and I have fun with it. I enjoyed Luca in particular because it wasn't your traditional mermaid per se. It was more of what we call merfolk. So there's lots of water beings and archetypes around the world from different cultures, and they're not always depicted as pretty young maidens with a tail and long flowy hair. And so I like Luca in particular because it kind of explored some of the nuanced sort of ideas of what different merfolk might look like, or, and I think generally speaking, it's really this fascination between being a part of one world and maybe having some inaccessibility to some other kind of world. And so I think there's a lot of deep sort of layers there that we sort of unpack sociologically when we create and watch these films.
There was a legend, I remember. I don't remember the name of the woman, but there was a prince who married a young woman who had a secret. And that secret is that she would turn into a mermaid at night, mm-hmm. and that she would have to bathe in the tub, and she would spend her nights in the tub, and her husband, her prince, did not know why. And then one day he comes upon her and realizes that she's a mermaid, and yet he still finds the magic in his heart to love her for what she is. And I think that certainly says a lot about accepting people for what they are, accepting people who are different, accepting people who are creative and think outside the box. Because today we're finding ourselves being very critical, I think, of people who are very creative. And so when someone like you is in the room, I just feel this energy of creativity and magic. And I think that's what you're trying to tap into.
Absolutely. And I think I think we all possess that magic on the inside, and it's really about helping people find vehicles and tools that they can use to express it. For me, my tool and vehicle is mermaiding. There's many tools out there, and different creative folks express it differently. This is, one particular way that I found and tapped into my own inner magic, and that's, obviously one of the reasons I do it. And I've discovered in all of my mermaiding adventures that there are a lot of other watery folks out there looking for a way to connect, and they become inspired and they want to do it too.
Are they Moo people? I mean, I know Lemuria is supposed to be somewhere out in the Pacific. Are they Moo people?
There's all different types of folks, and different folks come and approach this whether you call it, there's professional mermaiding, hobby mermaiding, and there's folks that do it because they're spiritually connected. There's they come from all different backgrounds, and they have their different reasons and identify in all sorts of different ways.
I had somebody tell me I was a Moo person. It was I met with a bunch of witches, seriously. And I interview a lot of people in different walks of life that are pretty much paranormal and magical. And I interviewed some witches, and this one witch said to me, the reason why you moved from the desert to the Pacific Northwest is because of the coast, and that you're a Moo person. And I go, what does that mean? He says, you're from Lemuria, and you're attracted to the ocean. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm a Pisces, which, makes me a kind of a fish guy. And I always say, that I'm a pitiful Pisces, because not only do I have this tough, rough exterior that I like to think I have, but inside I'm very sensitive and sentimental. And I think that I always say we need to have a self-help group for fish people, because we all have this watery side to us where we're emotional sometimes. I mean, is that what I mean? I know there are a lot of other mer people, believe it or not, in Oregon. Is that what they expect? Do they sense that maybe being a water person makes you more sensitive?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I would say that for folks that are deeply intuitive and sensitive and emotional, we live in a culture where sometimes those things are not valued. In fact, they're critiqued because they're viewed as weaknesses, right? To have emotional intelligence in our culture sometimes is viewed as being weak. And strength is often viewed through a very, I'm going to just say, toxic masculine lens. And so I think in particular, and I have all sorts of folks gravitate towards the work that I do in mermaiding, and they identify gender-wise all over the spectrum. But I think one of the reasons why they do that is that with what we do is we create a safe space where people can be themselves, where sensitivity and emotional connection are not only valued, but they're superpowers.
I did a movie called Word Speaker where I play a talk show host, believe it or not, but it's a talk show host that basically can't get over the fact that his family is gone, that he's died, and he's doing this radio show over and over again. And one of the things he says when he's on the air is he says, a fish out of water cannot be expected to act like a fish. And I sometimes feel that way, where, I left my home where I grew up, came here, and I felt like a fish out of water trying to find people that I can identify with. And it's hard, and I identify with the weird. And the reason why is because I love the weird. I love exploring it. Do you consider yourself part of the weird?
Absolutely. Only because our culture defines things as weird that's outside of the box, but I'm perfectly happy not being in that box. And so there's a term I recently learned called high-wrath. And that term describes what's called an eternal longing for something that never was. And when I discovered this term, I realized that encapsulated for me the entire sense of my mermaid being, and why I don't fit in that box is I long for a place and connection that I can't really find anywhere. And if that makes me weird, then so be it. But I believe in creating a world of magic and valuing things that sometimes our mainstream culture doesn't value. And and to find others like that and connect. And I think through, particularly in Portland, when we have our Portland weird culture, that's been particularly embracing of those that are like myself in all kinds of ways, where we have this high-wrath, this sense of longing for something we haven't quite found yet. So we're in the process of creating it, I think.
When I go to the ocean, when I go to the coast, I look at the ocean, I stand out there on the beach, I stand there on the berm, and I look at the ocean, I think I'm so small. I think I'm so small because everything about the ocean is so big. And it can be threatening. It can be inviting. I just went to Morro Bay. I was at Morro Bay over in near San Luis Obispo. And I was there, and I just felt so like I was home. And I think sometimes, we don't realize that there are those legends that say that we came from the water. We're mostly water. The earth is mostly water. So we have to somehow within ourselves feel that in order to be born again, which of course is part of a lot of religions, you have to be born of the water. Now, why is that?
Yeah.
What does it say about us being born of the water, do you think?
Well, I feel that you're right about this sense of this deep connection. I feel that sometimes human beings kind of separate themselves from nature, and so we don't remember our origins deep, almost on a molecular, maybe it's genetic memory and DNA, I don't know, but all creation ultimately was born out of the oceans. I mean, we have to remember that. And I think somewhere in us there is a genetic memory of that, and I believe that we are intimately connected to things in nature on this subtle level. Like, it's not always conscious. I think sometimes what people don't realize is spiritually awakened people are just simply people that have tapped into that memory. That's all it is. And they remember who they are, and they remember what we're connected to, and that division in the planet is sort of an illusion.
Right.
And so this connection of water, I think, is just sort of a memory of our birthplace. Right. And there's magic in that all of this diversity that exists in the natural world ultimately came from the water. You know, that the land and the trees and everything that ultimately, evolved over, thousands and thousands of years, it all came from the womb of creation, which is the ocean.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the entire situation with what we are on this planet, you have water that is, water that you touch and you drink and you can swim in, but then there's the water that you breathe in as well. We are an atmosphere that has water, and that, in fact, water is one of the biggest, I guess, gases we have. I mean, we are literally, I guess you could say, mermaids.
Yes.
In a way, because I mean, when you have most of your body being water, and the way the moon affects us and everything else, I mean, I really don't think people even think about that. They don't think about their association with water and how important it is.
Well, and there's such a very small difference in our biology anatomy that actually prevents us from actually breathing underwater. But with a few adjustments now, like deep sea divers, right, can actually wear devices where they breathe liquid. And you go into the deep sea, and it's actually preferred if you do deep sea diving to breathe in the liquid rather than air because of the pressure. And it's very hard to do. There's intense training that goes into it, but your lungs are actually able to breathe in liquid. They have to change the oxygen chemistry just slightly enough so that our bodies can tolerate it. But that is currently how deep sea divers swim even.
I was I was talking to you before, and it was one of the things that most impressed me was when I was a kid, one of my favorite movies of all time, seriously, is one of my favorite movies of all time, Mr. Limpet and the Fishes. Don Knotts.
Yes.
Loved fish so much, and he was it was like a professor, and he fell into the water and became a fish. And that's what this reminds me of, the idea that, you love the water so much that you would love to just one day be a fish, My stepson even made the comment this morning. He said, it's funny, they give sharks 1 week, but they give everybody else a month. Why? He says, it's like, we should have like Shark Month, or we should have like Whale Month or something. So and there's nothing more magical, I think, than going to Depot Bay and watching the whales. Do you do that?
Oh, absolutely. I try to connect with the water as much as I can. So whether I'm going out to the coast to connect with Mother Ocean there, I will find bodies of water. Fortunately, I live by a river, and Portland is a river town. We are surrounded by water. So that's really helpful, being a mermaid and having connection.
And do you just, I know you do this, you do gatherings, and you go to fountains, and you do all this stuff, and you have the mermaid parade and all this. We'll talk about that in a little while. Do you find yourself, though, just dressing up as the mermaid and going out and swimming?
Absolutely. And that's how it started. For me, the only reason why it sort of led into community things later was because people saw what I was doing and gravitated towards me and asked me if they could do it with me. But how it started was me just doing it so I could feel connected to water and be in my own being and experience nature from a very different perspective. And I tell people, if you haven't swam in a natural body of water as a mermaid, you haven't swam.
I've noticed that. I was noticing on your videos. I was thinking to myself, how is she doing this? I mean, it's like, we'll talk more. Una the Mermaid with us today. It's an amazing, amazing thing to be talking to a mermaid. My first time interviewing a mermaid. That's amazing. Right here on Channel Weird. Stay tuned for more with Una. We'll be back.
On the phone with me is Ronnie from GetTheTea.com. Hey, Ronnie, it is the tea that makes you go, I know this because I use it. My favorite is pomegranate. What kind of flavors are there to choose from with this wonderful tea?
You can do pomegranate. You can do just the straight, which is real good. And also we have a mint, a peppermint. People really love that one too. And we have a couple new flavors on the way, which I will not discuss yet, but they're coming.
You know, a lot of people don't know that peppermint is a very, very good supplement to keep the stomach happy. It relaxes the intestines, and once again, it makes you feel better because it allows them to move around and get that stuff out of you, that bad stuff out of you.
Absolutely. This is a digest mover. So people have a hard time digesting stuff, or you get something stuck, or maybe you're a real heavy meat eater. The tea is wonderful. That's why it's tagline, the tea that makes you go.
If I want my life to change and get the tea, where do I go to get it?
GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea, TEA.com.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero-friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Parawareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of July is only $79 a month. You save almost $40. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
You are watching Channel Weird and my debut interview with Una the Mermaid. A mermaid, literally. Like I say, I'm very excited and a little nervous at first, but now I get to know you and I'm glad I'm interviewing you. Seriously, it's just fascinating. We were just talking during the break about places and locales and all this. Being a mermaid, and I guess you could say a mer celebrity in a lot of ways. Do you find? Have you been? Do you get to go to certain bodies of water and decide you want to swim? Is this a goal that you go to different bodies, like maybe Lake Michigan or Ontario, or where have you been actually?
Yeah, I've certainly traveled a bit, and I've seen different bodies of water. I'm from Hawaii originally, so my first intimate connection, of course, is with the Pacific Ocean and the Bay, Hanauma Bay. We were just talking about that. Was really one of the most magical places where I grew up, encountering the ocean and all the fish. And then I moved to the mainland, and of course, rivers, lakes, ponds, streams. And as much as I love the ocean, I think for myself, I actually connect really deeply to ponds. I really love areas where there's a mix of forest land and sort of lotus flowers and lily pads. And so I connect, like I say that my home, like my mother is Mother Ocean, but I deeply connect with freshwater actually. So I'm very connected with ponds. I love that. But the most powerful experience I've had was my trip to southern India. I went to the southernmost tip of India where the three great oceans meet in Kanyakumari, and I've never seen anything like that and probably never will again. And each ocean has its own color, flow, sound. It's almost as if each ocean is its own identity.
Right.
And there's this point, on the earth, the southernmost tip where those oceans converge, and it's amazing. And I got to, be in that water in the Indian Ocean, and that was just amazing.
I can kind of relate to that because, since we live, in the Pacific Northwest, and we live, we can just go to the Pacific Ocean whenever we want to. I find myself, Newport has its personality, Depot Bay has its personality, Seaside, of course, has its personality, but Long Beach in Washington, I find myself loving that area for some reason. Then I went to Morro Bay, as I said just a while ago, and I fell in love with Morro Bay. It was really nice to be there. I just felt, even the chipmunks there give you a high five if you give them something to eat. And so they're used to the tourists, but I just felt, again, I don't know what it is. I think there's some sort of I don't know if it's ozone or some sort of electronic type of thing that the ocean sends out, because it does. It's an open area, but then there's, that feeling of electricity for some reason that I get from the ocean. I get this electrical feeling. My body feels it literally. I don't tell people that, but it is. It's like I have these electric kind of tingling in my body when I'm around the ocean. Is that normal? I don't know.
Yes. Well, mermaids would say that that's how you go to recharge and bathe and reconnect. The ocean gives off absolutely energy frequencies, and I think human beings in our sort of artificial environments, we don't realize the benefits of what nature offers our bodies, and the ocean in particular can be very invigorating. But it tends to be invigorating for a lot of people, but water elementals, people who identify with the water element, tend to get more recharged, because some people get charged off of harsh elements like wind and on top of mountaintops, where I don't get as charged from that experience as I do standing on the beach right there.
I never thought of that.
Ocean.
Wind does charge you.
Wind can charge you as well. And also
lightning storms for me too. I love lightning storms.
Yeah, and then you can combine all of that if you ever go to the beach on a stormy day, and that will definitely.
There's nothing better than being, looking out over the ocean and seeing the lightning coming and the storms coming in. It's invigorating. I've always wanted to go to the Atlantic and experience that, because I know that up in the Northwest, in the Northeast, sorry, that area does have, what they call perfect storms, where storms collide and they're just really, immense, and the maelstrom is like there, and it's like churning up the ocean, and it's kind of a neat thing to watch. I saw a water spout once when I was in Florida, and I just thought it was just marvelous. It was like, oh my gosh, look at that. It just once again, when you can see the power of the planet. I think people sometimes take for granted, they wake up every day, they're in their box, they get their coffee, they go about their business, but when you see the raging of the sea, and when you see the rage of the storm, and you see all this, once again, it all goes back to water and the electrically charged earth. That's exactly what it is. I was going to ask you, one of the things that I used to do when I was a kid, I grew up in Utah, so we didn't have, we had a freshwater lake. It was called Utah Lake, and that was a nice place to go. But we'd go out to the Great Salt Lake, which was a stinky place. But yet, you'd go there, and you'd float. There's so much salt in the water that you'd float, and it's kind of like a weird feeling because you can't sink. You're just out there floating in the lake. But what they had there, and a lot of people don't realize, were sea monkeys, those little brine shrimp. And a lot of people, they used to buy them in the comic books, and they'd put them in the little fishbowl. And I said, we see those all the time when we were in Utah, because you'd have to get them out of your suit and everything else. But see, that's the thing, is just the fun part about the water and all these areas where there's some magic. I really love Tahoe. I always get this vibe from Tahoe when I got to Tahoe. The water there is just blue. Mm-hmm. It's blue and beautiful. And I know it has a real, kind of a legend about it, because that's where the gangsters all used to take people and get rid of them there. But still, though, there's some magic there that, there's also apparently a water monster there. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that? What do you think about, like, Loch Ness?
Well, I absolutely think that it's possible, because I think there's so much of our waters and our world that remain unexplored. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting that there are places around the world that are similar to the Loch Ness area, where there was once an area of water that was once connected to the main body of ocean. And if you read some legends from all around the world, they all have similar stories of a creature living in bodies of water that are similar historically to how they were once connected with the ocean. And so maybe there is something living there. I think there are things that exist that humans have not fully discovered yet. So.
There was actually a picture that was going around the internet the other day that I posted on my Facebook page. Apparently a wave hit an area, and they said it looked like Neptune. Mm-hmm. It looked like Poseidon. Yes. Did you see that picture?
I did absolutely.
Wasn't that
see
amazing?
That picture. It was amazing. And I personally, for me, I absolutely believe in water spirits and elementals. And I feel that what people saw that day was exactly what they thought they saw.
That's what I saw too. Mm-hmm. I'm like going, wow. Sometimes, I know pareidolia. People say, oh, it's all pareidolia. I love pareidolia, because there's something about pareidolia that there's got to be a reason why it all comes together like that. And it sends, in capturing at that moment in time, when they snap that picture, and there you see that in the water, this bearded, crowned character that we've all grown up, Poseidon, Neptune, whatever you want to call him, and there he is, and you're like going, whoa. It just struck me as, this is just too weird. I like that stuff.
Well, I believe the ocean is alive, and I think that people, individuals, communities, and cultures who have spent close connection ties to nature have developed a knowing of nature and a bond with nature that you might not otherwise experience if you're not living with it in an intimate fashion. I believe the ocean is alive. I believe there are spirits, and I think they can take form as a way of communicating and showing their beauty. Mm-hmm. I also think that science and magic are not so different. And I think that we don't need to eliminate magic to have science. And I don't think we, need to eliminate science to have magic. And so I think the world will hopefully one day see that.
I'm going to go a little weird here, okay? I look into UFOs and aliens and all that stuff myself. Okay, so they're finding these strange UFOs coming up out of the ocean, and they're buzzing our naval ships. Do you have an idea that maybe these extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials that we're seeking after are not from space, but from the water?
Yes.
You
yes,
do? See, and that's the inkling.
Both.
Well, because they say that the octopus, or the cephalopod or the cephalopod is the closest thing we have to an alien on this planet. Mm-hmm. And I'm beginning, because it has its own power source, it's jet propulsion, and it thinks and it can communicate.
I think it's possible. I think, again, there's so much of our own world we haven't explored yet. And I think humans become really arrogant when they think we're the only ones out there. Like, why would you think that when the world is so diverse? So I think it's possible. I don't know for certain, but I think it's absolutely possible. And I think there's so much unexplored. The ocean still remains one of the most unexplored territories of the earth.
I know, it's so immense,
We know so little about it.
And I know that they're planning on sending something up to like Io or Enceladus, where they're going to land a spaceship on it. It's going to dig a hole in the ice, and they're going to look for fish, or like an extraterrestrial fish.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's got to be the constant, right?
Right.
The constant is we have marine life, perhaps on other planets, because they have that geothermal type of heating source. Yeah. So there's got to be something under the ice.
Right. And I think part of it too is humans need to expand their definition of what defines life. For
Right.
the longest time, they said that jellyfish did not have a brain because they couldn't identify a neurological system until a scientist finally discovered that the entire body of the jellyfish is its neurological system. It doesn't have a centralized brain, but it does have a brain, but it's unlike anything we've ever discovered. And so scientists, the science had to take a step back and say, oh, gee, life isn't always exactly the formula that we've decided it is, right? That we have to be willing to look outside that box.
So we learned now that the ocean is a matter of unfinished business.
That's right.
From Una the Mermaid, right here on Channel Weird. Stay tuned. We got some more things to talk about, and some of her work that she does on the side that's really important that you need to hear about. Una the Mermaid on Channel Weird. We'll be back.
On the phone with me is Ronnie from GetTheTea.com. Hey, Ronnie, it is the tea that makes you go, I know this because I use it. My favorite is pomegranate. What kind of flavors are there to choose from with this wonderful tea?
You can do pomegranate. You can do just the straight, which is real good. And also we have a mint, a peppermint. People really love that one too. And we have a couple new flavors on the way, which I will not discuss yet, but they're coming.
You know, a lot of people don't know that peppermint is a very, very good supplement to keep the stomach happy. It relaxes the intestines, and once again, it makes you feel better because it allows them to move around and get that stuff out of you, that bad stuff out of you.
Absolutely. This is a digest mover. So people have a hard time digesting stuff, or you get something stuck, or maybe you're a real heavy meat eater. The tea is wonderful. That's why it's tagline, the tea that makes you go.
If I want my life to change and get the tea, where do I go to get it?
GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Pair Awareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of July is only $79 a month. You save almost $40. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
And we got Una the Mermaid with us on Channel Weird. And such a great interview so far. I'm enjoying myself, actually. It's great. So I remember when I was doing research for the show and looking over some of your work, you do other things that besides being a mermaid and bring people together with this magical thing, the magical touch you have. You also work in restorative justice.
Yes.
And I think it's very important, and I think people need to hear about what that is and what it is that you're doing.
Great. Yeah, so my background actually is in conflict resolution and restorative justice, and I actually run a restorative justice education program at the Oregon State Correctional Institution. I've been doing that work since 2010. We're on a hiatus because of the pandemic at the moment. But what we do is we explore alternatives to incarceration. So we work with people to explore root causes of crime and harm doing and to figure out what healing and reparations in community look like by involving more direct stakeholders. So the people that are most impacted by crime having a larger voice and a say in what justice looks like for them. And part of the work that I do is really sort of challenging normative assumptions around what justice is. We currently live in a society where justice often is very much rooted in ideas of retribution and punishment, and not so much about actually resolving conflict, about actually fixing the problems that ultimately lead people to do harmful things.
Right. They call it correctional facilities, but most people, when they go in, don't get corrected at all. They don't.
Right.
They don't find a healing process, nor do they find a way to, get back on their feet. I've always said that justice is just another word for vengeance. Yeah. It turns out to be, we in this country have lost our focus on due process. Mm-hmm. We tend to make the guilty long before they're innocent, and a lot of people, they don't have a fighting chance because either in a moment of distress they lash out or something. And finding the root cause has never been, as far as I'm concerned, in the justice system, finding the root cause for these problems has never been a priority, because there's more money to be made out of incarcerating people. There's more. This is how the system is working, and it's unfortunate that this is how the system works. We have so many people who are jailed for things that are I'd say minor offenses, but even the major offenses sometimes too, because we look at there are some people that are just they will not be rehabilitated. Yeah. I mean, I've had the experience of not dealing in restorative justice, but dealing with young people who've been harmed by adults or by people they've trusted. And there's so much pain in that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people realize the pain that's involved here, and trying to break that pain and finding a connection. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of this stuff that happens is because we don't find a connection with anything.
Right.
And that's why I think what you're doing, finding a connection and giving people an idea of what, no matter what you do, find a connection in something that makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was at my worst, and I had a therapist tell me, what is it that you loved when you were a kid? What did you like that you were a kid? And I said, well, I liked B-horror, sci-fi films, comic books. And they said, what's wrong with you? And I think I was like 35 at the time. What's wrong with you at the age of 35 going back to your B-horror movies and your comic books? And I thought, nothing. And so I did. In fact, I did a fanzine, wrote it, produced it, did my own movie with a friend of mine. We did a vampire film. And now I'm doing my talk show, the way I do it. So, what you're doing is you're living it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think that for me, the work I do with the justice system and my mermaiding work, they seem like very different pieces and just very different worlds, but they're interconnected in the sense that I myself am a survivor of family violence. I know intimately well things that can take place that lead people down certain roads. And so it's really about healing communities and repairing. And also part of that healing is tapping into kind of what you were speaking about, parts of that inner child and connecting and healing that and working with that. And also this idea that magic isn't something that has to disappear just because you grow up, right? As the Lost Boys and Peter Pan would say, right? Never grow up. So I think that's really important. And I think that brokenness, a lot of the people that I've worked with historically that are experiencing a lot of pain and brokenness and anger, and then, it leads them to do things that are harmful. These are all individuals who had, for a lot of them, their childhood stolen from them, a lot of brokenness and a loss of magic in their lives. And so I think it's really important that we as a community take a harder look at what brings people to do certain things so that we can repair those things in our communities, so we're not having to separate people from community in the first place.
I've learned in my experience, I think the problem that we have right now in the world, I mean, I know that sitting from where I am, I can solve all the world's problems, and what you're doing could probably solve all the world's problems. But I always say the problem we have today is that we have an empathy gap. We have an empathy gap where people are so cocksure of where they are in the world, yet they're just as miserable as everybody else, and they don't have empathy for others. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that people who are different than they are, they breathe, they feel pain, they're sad, they're happy, they need love, they need all this. And that's why, when you look at, they talk about racism and they talk about intolerance and they talk about all these things, it's because they've been victimized and they're complaining and they're thinking, do something for me, do something for me. Well, the problem we have is that while we have these people saying, do something for me, we have the others saying, I'm not going to give up anything. And there goes the empathy. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn that. I had to learn empathy all over again because, I had cancer 3 times in my life and also came close to dying. And after it happened, I had to relearn empathy because I hear people all the time complain about the littlest things. And I say, whatever. It's just people are making mountains out of molehills. But then I had to realize that, because when you go through these tumultuous things in your life, you have to relearn your empathy. You have to relearn how to be empathetic to those little things that people look as obstacles and not diminish them or belittle them or lessen them. Because the problem we're having now are people are not being heard. Nor are they being recognized. They're being rejected because they're different. They're being rejected because they're creative. They're being rejected because they have opposing views. How do we restore that, do you think?
Well, I think the first thing, I'm going to approach this from a little sciencey level here, is that we need to understand how the brain is actually impacted by things like social values. So I have a little bit of a background in neurobiology, actually. I'm finishing my doctorate in psychology. And what we learn is that empathy is deeply connected to neurons in the brain, and that social experiences, so environments which teach intolerance and hate, actually diminish the amount of empathy neurons in the brain. So you are literally teaching empathy out of people. So children growing up in hateful environments or intolerant environments are actually having their brain on a structural level impacted from their abilities to feel empathy. Right. And so there's what we call a biosocial connection between the actual physical part of the body and how it's impacted, and also things of values. And so what we really have to do is start teaching values that amplify human connection and understanding of difference, right? That just because your experience is one way doesn't mean someone else's experience. Right. And to be willing to explore the things that sometimes are harmful in our communities that we don't want to take a close look at, right? Historical things, systems that have been put in place that historically harm individuals and create disadvantages. And it's uncomfortable because we don't ever want to believe that we're a part of a harmful system, or we didn't create that system maybe. So why should I be blamed for that? Or why do I have an obligation to fix it? But those are positions deeply rooted in ego and not really rooted in empathy. And so I think that part of fixing it is, 1, awareness of it, and then 2, fostering human connection and kindness and understanding as much as we can, so we can learn from others.
I think it was Orwell or Huxley that said that we cannot allow ourselves to be so non-empathetic to other people's problems. Otherwise, we could wake up tomorrow and China could be completely obliterated. He said China could be completely obliterated. With the lack of empathy we have, we wouldn't sense it as much as a paper cut. And that made me feel really kind of like, wow. And that's exactly the way we feel sometimes about other countries, like the Middle East or, China, of course. We're always talking about how bad they are. But, the thing is there are people there. People who actually have families that love and that go through things, and we forget about that. All we think about is their government and their philosophies and their ideologies and their politics. And I always think that, in this time, the political nature of everybody is turning everybody into hateful individuals towards each other, because we need to eliminate the political stuff and get back to being human beings who look at human beings with dignity and respect. And I think we're losing that, and I think that it needs to be somehow retaught or reused again. Una the Mermaid with us today on Channel Weird. We got more to come. Interesting interview, fascinating interview. It's amazing. We'll be back. Don't go away.
On the phone with me is Ronnie from GetTheTea.com. Hey, Ronnie, it is the tea that makes you go, I know this because I use it. My favorite is pomegranate. What kind of flavors are there to choose from with this wonderful tea?
You can do pomegranate. You can do just the straight, which is real good. And also we have a mint, a peppermint. People really love that one too. And we have a couple new flavors on the way, which I will not discuss yet, but they're coming.
A lot of people don't know that peppermint is a very, very good supplement to keep the stomach happy. It relaxes the intestines, and once again, it makes you feel better because it allows them to move around and get that stuff out of you, that bad stuff out of you.
Absolutely. This is a digest mover. So people have a hard time digesting stuff, or you get something stuck, or maybe you're a real heavy meat eater. The tea is wonderful. That's why it's tagline, the tea that makes you go.
If I want my life to change and get the tea, where do I go to get it?
GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis. Have you ever wanted Ground Zero merchandise but didn't know where to go? Well, I want to let you know that we now have our own online store with such items as t-shirts, hoodies, decals, tote bags, and other exclusive specialty apparel. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. Coming soon will be signed posters and coffee mugs available as we are constantly adding new items. So shop today at the official Ground Zero store by going to groundzeromerch.com. That's groundzeromerch.com.
It's all over the news, food shortages and scarcity in the supply chain, and the reality is nobody truly knows what might happen in the near future. Hi, I'm Clyde Lewis, and I want to let you know that it's a good idea to plan ahead so you aren't caught off guard. Nothing's more important than having enough food to eat, and we're here to help. We highly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leading emergency preparedness company. They provide long-term emergency food that lasts up to 25 years in storage. When grocery stores run empty or disasters strike, their foods will be there when you need them most. Act now and secure at least a 4-week emergency food kit full of tasty meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. They have dozens of emergency food storage kits to choose from, along with a variety of other survival products. If the government tells you not to go out, you can have the peace of mind that comes from being prepared. After you order from My Patriot Supply, your food will arrive discreetly at your doorstep. Prepare today, because time is short. Go to preparewithgroundzero.com. That's preparewithgroundzero.com.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
It's a well-known fact that controversial talk show hosts have recently been censored and even banned on the internet by corporate and political interests. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. And in order to counter the suppression of information, we've decided to create our own private digital playground called Aftermath. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring a social media platform, videos, audio clips, archive shows, research groups, documents, and a news aggregator. In addition, we're hosting other Ground Zero friendly podcasts like Conspirafact with Wes and Bill, Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean, Pair Awareness with Mr. Gates and Isaac Weishaupt, Opposing Perspective with James Ponder, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray Valentine, and several more shows. Mobile apps for Android and Apple are available too. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month. The yearly special for new subscribers during the month of July is only $79 a month. You save almost $40. Sign up now by going to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Welcome back to Channel Weird with Una the Mermaid. Now, we've talked about all the serious stuff. We've talked about all the... It's just a fascinating interview. So let's talk about the celebration that is being a mer person.
Yes.
And there are many people in this town that are mermaids.
Yes, we have quite a convergence of merfolk growing in the Pacific Northwest. We're not necessarily the largest convergence of merfolk. We have mer communities all over the nation and internationally. And so there are mermaid celebrations, parades, and conventions that happen across the country. Portland is growing in its mer enthusiasm here.
I'm sure it does. I mean, we got pirates, we got mermaids, we got all that. So tell us about the Mer Parade or the Mermaid Parade.
Yeah, so the Portlandia Mermaid Parade, well, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, it would have been our sixth year this year, but technically our fifth because we didn't have one last year. So the Portlandia Mermaid Parade happens on the last Saturday of every July. It's a free event. Because of COVID, we're not actually going to do the parade part of it this year just because of concerns about people gathering all at once. But instead, we are hosting a Mermaid Festival along the Portland waterfront on the last Saturday, which is July 31st from 11 to 5 p.m., also free. There's about 20 to 25 installations that folks can come and explore between the Morrison Bridge and the Salmon Springs Fountain. And I will be there with my tank, and I will be doing a live mermaid tank show. And there will be all sorts of fun guests, dancers, performers, pirates, mermaids, interactive mermaid spaces. We will have educational booths on mermaid mythology, behind the scenes on what it is to be a professional mermaid, mermaid story time. Pixis the unicorn is going to be there because there's nothing more magical than mermaids and unicorns side by side, and just sort of a lot of fun. And we Portland Soapbox Derby is going to come. They have mermaid cars that they've built. They're going to demonstrate and show. Our own synchronized swimming team, the Portland, our Rose City Raindrops, they're going to be there as well. Mike Bennett, our local Portland artist, is going to be there painting sea monsters and handing out sea monster stickers. So we have a lot going on, and folks should definitely swim on over and say hello.
You brought up the tank, and I'm not going to overlook that. You have a tank, and you do shows.
I do.
You do parties.
Yes. Yes.
Tell us about the tank. How do you do this?
Sure. Well, the mermaid tank has been a long dream. I've been mermaiding since about 2011, and more professionally, I started in 2012. I didn't start with the tank. I started in a little blow-up pool, like literally, just a tiny little pool. And eventually, I was like, well, one day I'd like to have a tank. And so I just sort of, researched and kind of looked to see what would be practical, because there are definitely mermaids that have tanks throughout the world, and there's all different sizes of tanks. But I had to figure out what would be practical for me here in the Northwest. We face some challenges doing this work here because of our weather, and, water temperature, all kinds of things, and also just mobility. Like, how would you even transport a tank? So I was very fortunate. I actually have sort of my own magical story around my tank. I drew a picture of what I wanted, the exact measurements, and I sort of ruminated on that image. And then, honest to gosh, one day I'm on my way out the door and I get this weird voice, like not a literal voice, but just like my intuition telling me, go check Craigslist right now and search mermaid tank or search tank. And I don't know why, because I never would search Craigslist for anything like that. And I was headed out the door to go on a pirate thing, actually, with my husband. And I searched tank, and lo and behold, the exact picture of what I had drawn like months prior was sitting there for sale. Really 45 minutes from where we were just headed out the door.
It's like this is your own mini Sea World is what this is.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so
children gather around the tank and mermaid comes up
Yeah.
And they see it like TV. It's ominous.
Yeah.
It's ominous and awesome.
It's an old dunk tank that somebody made years ago that we purchased and refurbished, and then we built everything around it. So how you see it now is not what it was when we bought it. We had to learn like how to fix fiberglass and all the things about water. So it holds 900 gallons of water, which in the scheme of things, as far as mermaid tanks go, it's pretty small, but it's perfect for me. It's about 5 feet deep and 5 foot square around. So it gives me plenty of space to swim and move. And then, and what's really great about it is that it provides this sort of, I interact with children all the time, of course, and, children, of course, are always fascinated with mermaids, but to actually be able to be in water and for them to see you moving and swimming in water just adds a certain magical component, right? A sense of realism, but also just sort of this wonder and awe that I don't think you kind of always get with the dry land encounters. And
how long did it take you to learn how to swim with just the fin?
Oh, gosh. So swimming, anyone can learn how to swim in monofin. It's definitely something that you don't ever want to leave children in a monofin unattended, right? These aren't toys in that way. So I started off with what we call smaller, lightweight fins. So for me, I started out, my starter tail was called a fin fun. Actually, my real starter tail was one I made. I started mermaiding before it was a thing. You couldn't buy mermaid tails. I literally sewed together rubber sheeting and sewed together swim fins to like make my own.
It's a 40-pound fin right
so
here, right?
this tail is about 40 pounds. This is a pure silicone mermaid tail. It's very heavy and it's very awkward to swim in, and you really do have to have some core strength, and you have to be a strong swimmer because the weight of this, things can go wrong actually when you're swimming as a mermaid, like leg cramps, all kinds of things can happen. And so you really want to practice and make sure that you're up to speed and gradually sort of, up your tail, so to speak, on the weight. So we have lightweight tails out there that are very great for swimming, that are like swimsuit fabric. And those are great starter tails. And then you can kind of work your way up to the silicones. Yeah.
Wow. Because I was watching that saying, how did she learn how to swim with a monofin? It's
pools. Yeah, going to the pools a lot, swimming. I do prefer to practice in pools rather than natural bodies of water. I can swim in natural bodies of water, but there's always an element of risk swimming in any natural body of water. There's risk any place, but pools are a safer place to practice, assuming you can find a pool that will even allow you to swim with a monofin on, and that sometimes is the challenge for folks.
So people have their inner mermaid, and
Yes.
they want to meet you, or they want to swim with you, or they want to. How do they reach out to be part of the mer community?
Great. Well, there's definitely all kinds of mer pods throughout the Northwest. So if they want to do it, they don't necessarily have to do it with me per se.
Right.
But if they're wanting a community, I certainly help have access to one particular community, which is the Traveling Fantasy Cove, which is my sort of my community arm of what I do. And we've been traveling with this pod. I've been working with them, since around 2012. So I have some original core members that have been around, and we travel together, and we set up dry land gigs. We have pools that we travel with, and we'll set up pools and swim.
And they swim too?
Yes, they
Wow.
swim. Yeah.
So they've learned how to monofin
Yeah,
swim.
and what's great about the community piece is if you're brand new to mermaiding and you really want to learn, even if you're just doing it for a hobby and you want to just learn about how to do it, and you want to learn about costuming, you want to learn about what goes into swimming as a mer, it's helpful to be around other folks who have been doing it, and they can kind of give you pointers and tips.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Traveling Fantasy Cove, we have a Facebook page. People can, I take volunteers at the beginning of every year. They can sign up and join, and then we travel around and do different gigs and community events together, and we're our own little mer family. So we have a great time.
Do you have like a group of sirens?
Sure. There's mermaids, there's sirens, and I always say what distinguishes a mermaid and a siren is personality.
So what, are the sirens singing, or what do they do?
Well, sirens tend to be very more isolating. They're not as, I think, they're a little more exclusive when you encounter sirens. So it takes a lot more to be a part of their community, I would say. It's possible, but it's not as easy. I think sirens are... they're maybe not always as friendly to the humans. I'll just say that. Mermaids tend to be a little bit more friendly. We like to play and interact and engage, and we're here for educative purposes. We're sort of more mission oriented in some ways. I think sirens really are more independent and really are more about being in their own community. They're less interested, I think, with the human world. So.
Okay. I always thought maybe the sirens would be something like the goths of the
Oh, well,
mermaids.
sure. There is that. There's the darker, more sultry mermaids. Archetypally speaking, sirens aren't mermaids, though. Sirens are elemental beings that don't actually have tails. They typically appear as women over water, and they will sing and lure you into entering into water and drowning. So in our mer subculture, sirens have a very specific meaning, but they're not actually mermaids.
That's interesting.
Even though there's a show called Siren and they're showing them as mermaids. But that technically, in mer mythology, that's not accurate.
That's amazing. There's so much to cover, so much to talk about here. The end of the month again, the last Saturday.
Yes, so we have a couple of exciting things. So the biggest thing, of course, is our Mermaid Festival that's happening, the Portlandia Mermaid Festival happening along the waterfront. It's absolutely free for the community to come. And the other two exciting things I just want to plug real quick is we are, the city of Portland has, we've applied and they've agreed to read a couple of proclamations that we're passing. City Council will be reading those on July 28th. And the first one is the last Saturday of every July will be officially declared Portlandia Mermaid Day. So that's really great. And then the second one is every July will be dedicated as PDX Splash Month. And SPLASH stands for Stewardship, Preservation, Local Arts, Sustainability, and Heritage. And we will be getting organizations, community groups to sign up for activities for sort of this July PDX Splash Month calendar, all dedicated towards water activities and water and ocean justice and awareness.
We need more of that here. I mean, I'm thinking, since we are a state that borders on the Pacific Ocean, there needs to be more focus on water sports. We have rivers everywhere here. We got the Willamette, we have the Columbia. And yeah, it's just some great stuff you're working on. Una the Mermaid, such a great interview. Thank you so much for being here on Channel Weird.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Hey, join us next week. We have another Channel Weird. This will air again later on. So check us out. And my gosh, thank you so much for being a part of this Channel Weird. Take care.